What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Jericholic8704, here to give you another installment of Raw is Jericholic8704. Tonight, we have Raw from June 28th, 2004, live from Richmond, Virginia. So let's dive right in. It opened up with a recap of Triple H and Eugene, because as you know, the World Heavyweight Champion is a complete backseat in this show, because it's all about Eugene, and it's all about Triple H. So the opening segment, Evolution comes out. Triple H says he is the new official #1 contender, and he wants to talk to Eugene, and he has Eugene come out to the ring. So Eugene comes out. He's really happy to see Triple H, and he's waving to all the people, but he's really skeptic about Flair and Orton and Batista. Triple H says that last week during their match, he was just trying to teach Eugene a lesson because there's a lot of mean people backstage, and he wants to make sure that Eugene isn't foiled by any of the mean people like the World Heavyweight Champion, Chris Benoit. He said Benoit is not Eugene's friend because Eugene got hit in the head with a steel chair by Chris Benoit. Eugene said very innocently, "I'm sorry, Triple H, but he apologized to me," and Triple H says he's just being a liar, and he says that Chris Benoit is a big, and then Triple H halts himself, he stops himself. He says, "I don't want to curse in front of you, Eugene. I don't want to say any bad language in front of you." Eugene says he can handle it, and Triple H says he's a big jerk. That's right, I dropped the J word. So Eugene is appalled. He can't believe his favorite wrestler, his idol, just said these horrific things about the World Heavyweight Champion. Triple H says he wants to make Eugene an honorary member of Evolution. Orton, Batista, and Flair, they were not fans of this idea. They were looking all around each other, looking like, what are we going to do with this guy? Why is he putting this with Eugene? He's going to kill us. This is killing Evolution and all that. Regal comes out, and he tells Eugene that everything Triple H is saying is, quote, bloody rubbish, him at his true Englishman form. And he says, Regal says to Eugene that he cannot trust Triple H. Triple H says William Regal was never Eugene's friend, and he explains to Eugene the backstory of William Regal's whole managerial service with Eugene, how he was being used, Eugene was being used as a means for William Regal to get his job back, and then, William Regal admits that this is the truth, but he tries to say he turned over a new leaf, but Triple H cuts him off, and he tells Eugene that, William Regal's a backstabber, he's not his real friend, and then eventually Bischoff comes out, and he says that tonight there will be a match between William Regal and Triple H, and Eugene will be the special guest referee, which King asks, can Eugene even count to 3? Wonderful. So this opening segment, I feel like a lot of this could be accomplished within 5 minutes. I feel like it went on for an eternity. It might have even gone 5 minutes, but I doubt it because it really dragged out. The whole thing with Triple H, he just went on and on and on. And he kept talking about how mean everyone was. And I understand they're trying to get the point across that he's manipulating Eugene, but it just took forever. I really feel like they could have sped this up a little bit. So then we had our first match of the night, a rematch from last week, Chris Jericho and Edge versus Randy Orton and Batista. So Jericho was all hot because last week, he got that concussion from Batista's big old clothesline. So he and Randy Orton start, but Jericho's like, no, I want Batista. So Randy Orton tags Batista in, and Jericho and Batista start. So during this match, the fire alarm was going off. They said over the intercom, like JR said to the audience at home, that it was, a false alarm, that they were being notified it was a false alarm. But as far as I don't really know how they notified the audience in attendance in Richmond that this was a false alarm. But throughout the match, you just heard, and throughout, what was funny about this is the crowd was chanting Y2J in accordance with the speaker. So it'd be like, Y2J. Y2J. They were doing it with the fire alarm. I thought that was kind of funny. But eventually they turned the fire alarm off, and that's all the crowd could talk about. That's all the crowd could focus on. That's all the announcers could talk about for the opening part of this match. But when they turned it off, the crowd popped huge. So Jericho tries, to beat up on Batista, but Batista cuts him off, and they start beating up on Jericho. Batista and Orton are, tagging in and out, and eventually Orton's in there with Jericho, and Jericho hits a swinging neck breaker for a counter to make a hot tag to Edge. And when I say hot tag, I know sometimes I stretch that term and to make it mean something that it doesn't, but the crowd really, really popped when Edge got the tag. So Edge goes for a spear on Orton, but he leapfrogs it. Batista invades, and Jericho and Edge start doing some double team moves. Jericho whips Edge into a baseball slide, and he takes out Batista, and they both do diving cross bodies onto Orton and Batista on the outside. The whole shit was hitting the fan. Coming back from commercial break, Edge and Orton are both in the ring, and Batista and Orton are tagging in and out, and they're getting the heat on Edge. So eventually, Edge and Orton are in the ring. They both make a tag to their partners. Jericho starts his comeback with the bulldog and the rope attack and whatnot. Jericho goes for a sunset flip, but Batista holds on, and then Edge comes in with a drop kick, which allows Batista to fall, and Edge and Jericho get the near fall. Batista and Orton double team Jericho, but Jericho fights off Orton, and then Batista goes for a clothesline, one of the big old clotheslines that knocked Jericho loopy last week on Raw. Jericho ducks, and Orton gets completely annihilated, and Edge comes in and spears Batista, and then Jericho hits the Lion Salt for the win. And then we had Evolution backstage. Flair is talking to Triple H, and he says Triple H is the best in the world, and he's never questioned anything he's ever done until tonight. He said, "Why are you letting Eugene in Evolution? He's going to, quote, kill the gimmick," which I thought was, leave it to Ric Flair to break kayfabe every week on Raw. And Triple H says it's just him holding up his end of the bargain with Bischoff. He's just going to let Eugene be in Evolution for the night, and then they're going to use Eugene. He's going to be used once his utility is finished. He will no longer be needed. And then Triple H says this all to Ric Flair, and Ric Flair says, Can't we just kill the guy? Can't we just strangle him tonight on Raw?" So I guess Ric Flair is promoting murder. And then Triple H says he just wants to use Eugene to get back the World Heavyweight Championship. So then we had clips of the Diva Search finalists. It was just a bunch of girls just going in a bikini, standing on a podium so Coach can tell them if they're standing in a bikini the right way or not. That's all it was. So then we had a backstage segment with Lita. So Lita is trying to call Matt on a very 2004 cell phone. It's even one of the flip phones with the antenna, the good old days. So Lita's all crying, and Stacy Keibler, who just cannot get out of their business, man. Stacy's just been backstage. It's like they just randomly picked someone out of a hat. It was like, Stacy, you're the one who's going to be intervening in Matt Hardy and Lita's trials during this horrible time with Kane. So Stacy Keibler comes up and she says, "Hey, Lita, what's wrong?" I almost threw myself out my window. I was like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Are you going to ask this woman what's wrong? She just got raped by a 7-foot monster. The baby that she thought she was going to have with her boyfriend might now be the baby of her rapist. Her rapist is insane and is coming to kill her and her boyfriend." All of this is going through her head, and she's going to ask what's wrong. I was gobsmacked at how much of an idiot they made Stacy Keibler out to be. So Lita's crying. She's like, "I'm a horrible person. I feel so bad for sleeping with Kane. I just did it to protect Matt. I didn't want all this to happen." And then Stacy asks, "Well, what are you going to do?" And it's like, I guess they're painting a logical picture here, because let's be real. If anyone came up to us with this scenario, with literally this scenario, what were we going to say to them? Like, "Hey, dude, defer to your counselor, man," because I would have no idea what to say to Lita if this were real. If this were all real and this whole scenario was 100% legit and Lita had gone through all of this shit, I would not know the first thing to say. So I don't know why I'm giving Stacy Keibler such a hard time. She was just acting like any other rational human being would, because I would not know where to begin, where to unpack with this whole scenario, because this whole storyline is a fucking mess. I would just say, "Listen, you need to talk to someone. You need to talk to a professional. Let me defer you to a professional, because I am not a professional, and I don't know the first thing about what to say to make you feel better." So honestly, I'm turning a new leaf right here live on Raw is Jericholic8704. I'm turning a new leaf on Stacy Keibler. You're no longer an idiot. You are an idiot for asking what's wrong, because dumbass. What do you think's wrong? But asking what are you going to do, that's just what else can you ask? What else can you do at this point? So, Stacy Keibler, I apologize a little bit. I still think you're an idiot for that first question, but let's move on. So then we had an interview with Kane. Jim Ross is in the ring surrounded by security, and King on commentary makes light of the fact that this time last year, and you can look it up on a previous episode of Raw is Jericholic8704, where I go over the Raw where it went off the air with Kane grabbing JR and setting him on fire. I don't know the date off the top of my head, but I'm sure you'll find it in the catacombs of Raw is Jericholic8704 for you 7 people listening. So JR introduces Kane, who quickly comes to the ring. Kane says, there's no one that could stop him from hurting JR, so all the security around him are just completely meaningless. So JR asks why he tried to kill Shawn Michaels 2 weeks ago on Raw, and Kane says he was angry that he didn't win the world title, and when he's angry, bad things happen, and Shawn Michaels simply got in his way, and he needed to quote-unquote suffer. So Jim Ross asked about Kane and Lita, and he's like, what's that all about? So Kane said the one thing he always craved was a normal life, and since he could never have it, there was one thing, a part of a normal life that he could have, and that was an offspring. And just hearing Kane say offspring, that sounded so, like, it was a good choice of words, because, for the storyline at least, because, like, Kane said he could have had a child, a son, a daughter, a kid, but offspring, it sounds so, like, mechanical. If you know what I mean. I'm sorry if that doesn't even make sense, but, like, what I mean by that is, like, clearly Kane is having this child out of greed. So it's like, it's not like it's a kid he cares about. It's just simply an extension of Kane. And Kane said he wants an individual that he can mold to continue his legacy of destruction and pain and all that shit. So he says he's going to beat Chris Benoit tonight for the World Heavyweight Championship. And then in 8 months, he will become a father. And then Jim Ross gently says, Kane, there's a 50-50 chance that the baby might not be yours. It might be Matt Hardy's. Then Kane gets all pissed and he grabs JR by the throat and he's like, what are you trying to say? And then eventually Matt Hardy sneaks through the crowd. He sneaks around the dozens of security members that are surrounding the ring and he attacks Kane. And what was great about this is Matt Hardy's attacking Kane in a see-through shirt, I might add. If I'm going to, avenge my girlfriend and attack someone, I'm not going to be wearing a see-through shirt. Anyway, Matt Hardy is attacking Kane and the security guards are just fucking twiddling their thumbs. They're just watching everything happen. And eventually Bischoff comes out and he's like, security, what the hell are you guys doing? Get in the ring. Now, obviously, I'm pretty sure that was what was supposed to happen, but it made the security guards look like total dumbasses. Now, granted, when has security ever looked tough on a wrestling show? I mean, this past SmackDown, they were able to drag out James Ellsworth, but then again, that's James Ellsworth, so who's really tough in that scenario? But anyway, the security guards were just complete idiots here, so they made them look like complete dumbasses. But eventually they get Matt Hardy out of there, and Bischoff apologizes to Kane for the attack, and to make it up to him, he announces that the stipulation for tonight's World Heavyweight Championship match between Kane and Chris Benoit is as follows. Chris Benoit can only win the match via submission, and Kane can win the title via pinfall, submission, disqualification, or countout. Kane was very happy with this news. After that, we had Triple H versus William Regal with special guest referee Eugene. So Triple H forces Regal into a corner and Eugene calls for a break and Regal shoves Triple H. Triple H complains about the lack of a clean break and Eugene tries to enforce the rules with William Regal. So they do some chain wrestling for a bit and Triple H complains to Eugene about Regal's closed fists, and after that, during the distraction, Triple H cuts off Regal and he starts beating him up for the heat. Regal starts a comeback with the backdrop and the exploder suplexes. Flair distracts Eugene and tosses Nux to Triple H. Regal takes the Nux from Triple H and threatens to use them, and then Eugene spots him and DQs Regal. He's very sad about this because he didn't want to see his idol stooping so low to use brass knucks on his opponent. Regal tries to talk to Eugene, but Triple H jumps him from behind, knocking down Regal and Eugene. Eugene gets pissed, thinking it was Regal, and he attacks him. So he's just pounding away at William Regal. William Regal sells it like he's dead. Triple H and Flair pull Eugene off of Regal. Eugene snaps and he even attacks Flair, but Flair shakes it off and they both calm him down. And they get him out of the ring, and Eugene's very, very upset at the fact that his idol, his mentor, has stooped so low and has become such a low life, and Triple H is now his only friend. The match was fine. The match was okay for what it was worth. I mean, this whole match was used to tell us to further the Eugene Triple H, alliance storyline and show that Eugene had fallen out with William Regal. And I will say the crowd really bought it when he attacked William Regal, because I think a lot of that has to do, one, with Nick Dinsmore's commitment to the Eugene character, and two, to William Regal's commitment to his own character. William Regal really sold this like he really cared about Eugene. I mentioned that last week or 2 weeks ago, I can't remember. But William Regal really sold this storyline well. And William Regal always sold his storylines well because he was always very emotional. But, when Eugene turned on Regal and he, slammed him down and started beating up on him, and it looked kind of brutal. I mean, he was hitting him with a bunch of closed fists to the point where William Regal couldn't even defend himself anymore, and William Regal was laid out in the ring. The crowd kind of ate it up. It was actually really, really good. And the match itself was fine. There was good wrestling. You're not going to see bad wrestling with Triple H and William Regal. But Eugene turning on William Regal was a very, very good moment. It was really nice. I liked it a lot. So, a thumbs up here. The match was nothing because it was supposed to be nothing. It was a story. It was basically a segment, if you will. It really wasn't a match. But overall, this was really good stuff. So then we had La Resistance versus Rhyno and Sergeant Slaughter. Before this match, JR noted that a current WWE Hall of Famer was going to be in action next. And considering that, but the Hall of Fame, they brought it back and made it like a recurring thing at WrestleMania starting in 2004. And that first class had it had Slaughter, Harley Race, I think, Greg Valentine, I think Valentine, Tito Santana, and all that. So I was going over the names in my head. Jesse Ventura was one of them, Bobby Heenan, but they're not going to be wrestling. So I was going over the names in my head. I was like, Sergeant Slaughter makes sense. This was June 28th, so the 4th of July was coming up. So La Resistance comes out, and they talk about how how can the Americans celebrate Independence Day when the U.S. just oppresses everyone around the world. So Sergeant Slaughter's music hits, and no one really jumps up, no one's really popping, and then I realize it's because the La Resistance video is playing, and then eventually Sergeant Slaughter and Rhyno come out on stage, and the crowd goes crazy. So basically this entire match is La Resistance beaten up on Rhyno, and eventually Rhyno gets a hot tag, and Sergeant Slaughter hits some suplexes and some clotheslines and shoulder tackles and all that, and then he hits a Cobra Clutch on Rob Conway, and the crowd, they ate it up. They were cheering their heads off. This was really, really cool to see Sergeant Slaughter get the pop, and especially the Cobra Clutch get such a big pop. But eventually, La Resistance double team Sergeant Slaughter, and they double team Rhyno, and they get him out of the ring, and they hit their tag team finisher on Sergeant Slaughter, and they get the 1, 2, 3 for the win. This was a nothing match. It was just a nostalgia spot for Sergeant Slaughter. Obviously, it would have been cool to see Slaughter win, considering it's 4th of July, but then again, La Resistance are your tag team champions, and you really can't beat your tag team champions with a retired wrestler. So at the end of the day, it was a smart decision, and I guess you gotta give the crowd a little sad moment. They can't really chant USA, but honestly, even in 2004, I was tired of the foreign heel gimmick, and we're still doing it today in 2017 with Jinder Mahal. So some things never change. So we had another backstage segment with Eugene and Triple H. Eugene's all pissed, and Triple H gets uncomfortably close to him. I was really uncomfortable. Not only was Triple H really close to Eugene, but both Eugene and Triple H were really close to the camera. This was just and I'm definitely I've never been diagnosed with claustrophobia, but I'm 100% convinced I'm claustrophobic. I don't know if you diagnose phobias. I'm pretty sure you do, but my main thing is I know for a fact I'm claustrophobic. Maybe not severely claustrophobic, but a little bit, because especially when I'm on planes, or if I'm packed in a car real tight and I can't extend my legs out, because I'm really tall. For those of you who don't know, I'm 6'3", and my legs are really, really long. And if I can't extend them outwards, I get really I get sweaty, and my heart starts racing a little bit. I'm definitely it's a real thing. I know, I remember when I was younger, I would laugh at that. Oh my God, people are afraid of tight spaces. But now I'm dude, fuck that. If I can't extend my body outwards, I am not comfortable. I really got to keep my mind off of it. That's why I always have to have music, or a book, or my 3DS or something if I'm on a plane or something like that, because I know it's going to be a tight space. I know I'm going to be tightly packed in there, and I got to make sure that I got something to take my mind off of the fact that my body can't, fully stretch out, because it's a pain in the ass to me, and it really overwhelms me if I don't have that. So the more you know about Jericholic8704. Jericholic8704, your favorite wrestling YouTuber, is claustrophobic. And it's definitely legit. I know for a fact it's legit, even though I've never been diagnosed with it, even though a doctor has never told me I'm claustrophobic. I know for a fact I am, just because, but whatever. We're getting horrendously off topic here. The point is, Eugene says he's very angry. Triple H says it's okay, and he goes over all the people Kane. He said he was your friend, but then he kicked you in the head and humiliated you. Chris Benoit said he was your friend, but he hit you with a chair. William Regal said he was your friend, but he tried to hit me with brass knucks, and he said, don't worry. Evolution has your back, and Evolution are your friends, and we'll make sure nothing bad happens to you. That was the segment, but then I had to go on a tangent about claustrophobia. But whatever. So then we had more clips of the Diva search. So, this is getting old fast. King says there's another regional, qualifying round. So I think we have one more of these highlight packages. And then I think eventually the Divas are going to make their debut maybe in 2 weeks or so. We had a backstage segment with Bischoff, Flair, and Coach. Flair's talking to Bischoff. He's just saying random shit, and then he runs into Coach. He's like, hey, Coach, you and me, the hotel later today. And the fact that we are supposed to believe that Jonathan Coachman is partying with Nature Boy Ric Flair, I find that extremely laughable. So Coach comes in, he's like, Mr. Bischoff, I know you're really excited about your vacation next week. You're not going to be here at Raw, and I'm going to tell you that I'm going to do everything I can to be an amazing interim Raw general manager. He's basically just kissing his ass and showing him that he'll be okay. And then Bischoff says, you know what, Coach, I appreciate it, but let me tell you, you are not going to be the interim Raw general manager next week. I need a family member. I need Eugene. So he announces that Eugene will be the general manager for the July 5th edition of Monday Night Raw from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. So then we had our main event, World Heavyweight Championship match, Chris Benoit versus Kane. So obviously Chris Benoit can only win via submission, and Chris Benoit starts by attacking Kane's leg right off the bat. He goes for a crossface, but Kane tosses him out of the ring, and then they go to a commercial break. Coming back from commercial, Benoit is beating up on Kane, but Kane cuts him off with a big boot, and Kane throws Benoit outside the ring and into the post, and he goes for a countout victory, but Benoit makes it just in the nick of time right before the ref's about to hit 10. So Benoit and Kane fight out again to the outside of the ring. Benoit drops Kane on the steel steps, and Benoit tries for a countout victory, but then the ref explains that he can no longer win via countout. He can only win via submission. So eventually, they're fighting out on the ringside some more, and King is making a bunch of jokes about Kane being a parent, and I think eventually JR, like, in character, he's always supposed to be aggravated at what King said, but I really think JR was having it with all of King's jokes, and JR just snapped. He yelled at King at the top of his lungs, and he got that really, like, guttural JR voice. Y'all know the voice I'm talking about, when he's, like, really angry or really passionate about something, and he has that really guttural tone to his voice. He uses this tone of voice at King, and King was just like, whoa, dude, you gotta chill. So I really think there was a hint of reality in that, because King was making a lot of, like, Kane's going to the PTA conference when he has his son, ha ha ha, like, he was just saying all these jokes, and JR was just so bed, bath, and beyond done with King's shit that it was just hilarious. So Kane goes for a chokeslam, but Benoit counters into the crossface. The crowd goes nuts at this. Kane powers out of the crossface. He gets up to his feet and slams Benoit down. Kane goes for a tombstone, but Benoit reverses into the German suplexes, and Benoit hits the diving headbutt. He goes for the pin, and the ref reminds him that he has to submit Kane, which honestly, after he hit the diving headbutt and went for the pin, I was totally buying that as a near fall, because I forgot the rule that he couldn't pin. And, King was like, Earth to Benoit, you idiot. And JR was like, oh, it's force of habit, it's instinct from Benoit. And honestly, I completely forgot. I remembered the countout, that he couldn't win via countout, but then again, I think that's more of like a babyface would never want to win via countout. So including that spot in there was kind of weird. But when he went for the pinfall, I was like, oh yeah, pinfall, you can totally win by pinfall. I totally forgot the stipulation right then and there. So Benoit goes to the top one more time. Kane catches him for a chokeslam. Benoit wrings his arm off the top rope, and then he rams his arm into the post. Benoit goes for another German suplex, and then he gets the crossface on one more time. Kane's in this crossface for a bit longer. He tries to power out, and in a similar way to when Sasha Banks submitted Nia Jax on the previous episode of Raw, Kane kind of flips to his back, so it's like an inverted crossface. And much to my surprise, Kane just flat out tapped out right then and there. So this is a good match, nothing wrong here, but they really just flat out beat Kane. I mean, obviously, Benoit was going to the match with Triple H at Vengeance. So after the match, Kane attacks Benoit and hits him with a chokeslam, and then Lita's music hits, and she comes out all smiles and everything. She gets into the ring and presents Kane with the title belt. Kane's all happy and everything, and she tells him to finish Benoit off. Kane turns around, and Lita punts him in the nuts, and then takes the World Heavyweight Championship and tries to belt shot Kane. Kane catches her and, attempts to chokeslam her, and then he remembers that she's the mother of his child, and he sets her down and yells at her in the corner and scolds her and says, don't you ever put your hands on me again. Don't ever attack me like that, because I won't hesitate to attack you back. He eventually forces Lita to get out of the ring. He turns around, and then Benoit's there with the title belt, and Benoit belt shots him, and Raw goes off the air with Chris Benoit celebrating with the World Heavyweight Championship. And that's it. That is the end of Raw. Overall, this is a pretty decent Raw. Nothing exciting happened, nothing great happened, but some of the segments were good. The main events and what was advertised for the show was pretty good. So overall, not terrible, just a pretty average Raw. Kind of lackluster compared to the other Raws, but still a good show and much better than 2017 Raw. My name is Jericholic8704, and I will see all of you later.